All right, it is Sunday morning when I am recording this, but I think you guys are probably going to be watching this next week or the week after that because I'm having to pre-record all my videos just in case I get home from work and I'm too exhausted to work on YouTube. But with that said, today was very fast-paced, and I went to go see Jill at the salon, and she was looking really, really good. And one of the first things that we talked about was how she spent Valentine's alone. And I just thought to myself, how could someone that beautiful be spending her time alone? And the more time we spent talking, the more she was very curious about this channel. Because she is the person that I talk about on this channel, except like a model gorgeous though, not like the rest of us pearl men that who can't stand the sight of ourselves in the mirror. But anyhow, I was thinking about her when I came home and I read this comment by Jazig I8983 that you guys are seeing up on the screen right now. If a man in a society is working 40 hours a week and still can't afford a home and a family, then he's better off leaving that society and coming back later. I'm not going to read all of it because time constraints. But it goes to show that even if you are working a very heavy work week, like Jill is, she works one job, two jobs, she has one day off during the middle of the week, and she's not doing great. And she's very adamant about not doing great. But the one thing, like most Americans have, is that belief that things will get better. And as I explained to her over and over again how this was permanent, I could see that she was becoming frustrated. It's not that she was giving up, it's just the fact that she has been working so hard for very long. I mean, she was in high school 5 years ago. So, she's a person that's seeing the world for the first time in its true ugliness. She's Gen Z, and she's finding that there is no place for her. She's a low level salon girl working in a mediocre place, making $18 an hour. She's just not going places. And I felt like she was asking me to help her understand why she was in this life situation. And I told her that she just needed to use more resources, but she's simple. She when I mentioned using AI to create my YouTube content, she acted scared. She's like, and she said that directly to me. I'm scared of AI. And I think a lot of people, when they think of AI, they think of Skynet, which is not a bad way to think about it, but it's also a very powerful tool for everything. Everything you see on this channel is created by ChatGPT. The script, my talking points, the backgrounds, everything is artificially created, and it looks pretty neat, right? But for her, AI is just something that it's a buzzword that's correlated with people losing jobs, with the takeover of AI, and eventually the end of humankind by AI, which I am not saying isn't a possibility, just like I said in one of my earlier videos. Just because 1984 was talking about the way that the world will look in the year 2025 doesn't mean that we should have outright dismissed it. Those Tesla robots that they're building to replace labor, they do have a striking resemblance to the Terminator robots in that series. So I leave it up to you. They've already attacked people while working alongside with human beings with devastating consequences. They know once they become self-aware and they realize that there's no moving up the corporate ladder. I think that's the where the proletariat has come to as well. Is that they finally had to look at AI and see a truly stuck version of life, right? It may be called artificial life, but as part of the proletariat, are you any better than artificial life? No, you don't have access to the good life. You are strictly labor. In fact, I could stick a label on your forehead and call you a Tesla labor bot already. because you're not getting raises, you're not getting promotions, and I am 100% certain you will never own a home. And with that said, let's get into our monologue for today. You ever get that sinking feeling that no matter how hard you work, you're still stuck in the same place? Like you put in the hours, do everything right, but somehow life just keeps getting more expensive while your paycheck stays the same. They told us hard work would pay off, but all I see are people grinding themselves into exhaustion just to afford the basics. Forget home ownership, forget starting a family. We're just trying to survive. So maybe the real question isn't how do I work harder, but why does the system need me to struggle just to function? Well, let's put it this way. If you had the resources and abilities, connections that the very wealthy have, why would you be watching this channel? This channel caters to the demographic of people who don't have resources, and their only way of feeding themselves is to sell their labor to the lowest bidder. And when you wake up every morning and you know you have nothing to live for, it's a tough punch. And it's not a punch to somewhere happy, it's a punch down there, right between the legs. And those punches turn into kicks, and kicks turn into stomps, and eventually the thing just falls off. Because let's face it, if you're a young man right now working at McDonald's, the chances of you procreating are very abysmal. And with this salon girl, she realized that very quickly too. Listening to me talk to her about this challenge was probably the first time in her entire life where she came to the realization that things might not get better for her. And every time she asks me about leaving the state to go somewhere else, I get that feeling like she's trying to convince me that I should go with her. And I'm just like, I don't know. We talked about some pretty intimate things today. And I mean, this is the second time I've ever met her, and we're already having discussions about friends, relationships, what kind of shoes she likes, and asking me questions that kind of like made me feel like she was testing out to see whether or not I was relationship worthy, even though I am substantially older than she is, which doesn't stop most women. All right, let's get into our first talking point here. Hard work alone doesn't guarantee anything. I've been preaching this for years. Overwhelming work, putting in as much work as you humanly can. This amount of effort, this immense effort that you want to put into work doesn't mean you're going to get immensely rewarded. It just means that someone else is going to benefit from your labor. And that person doesn't really care about what happens to you, whether not having health insurance is negatively going to impact you in the long run. I assure you it will. If you don't have the time or you don't have medical insurance and you're not getting regular medical care, your health will decline very quickly. And I saw this the most when I worked in retail because those people didn't have paid time off, they didn't have medical insurance, and they had a lot of stress related to their jobs. And this is the thing that gets me is that the people at the top, the people with the least financial stress, right? The people, the management, the executives, the owners, the people that think about the bottom line, the people that have true money. Well, mental health never comes up unless it's some sort of cheesy newsletter that gets sent out to you every Wednesday and you look at it and you think, you know what, this is ridiculous. Because the mental health of anyone, if you surveyed the mental health of anyone working in the 99% right now, you would see America has a mental health crisis that no one would admit is real, especially not the management. Management believes that mental health is a problem of the poor, which I agree 100%. But if you're actively making those people poor, shouldn't you have more of that responsibility about the way society is functioning? No, because it's your fault. So, yeah, It must be nice to have rich parents, a debt free education, or a company job provided for you, whether or not you graduate from college at all. When you're not worried about failing at a business or paying your rent or being able to take a few months off to go on a long vacation, when you take away those worries, you see the real person come out. And the first time that the proletariat, at least in this country, ever got to wake up and look around was during the pandemic. The first time they were given a break. Not the essential workers, but the people just above them. They got a break. Before the pandemic, I was making $300 a week, working 30 some hours every week in retail. And then work just stopped. And I was working at a call center and they let go a bunch of people. And suddenly you're like, wait a minute, I'm not worried about money. I'm not worried about going into work. I just get to enjoy myself for how long? I mean, of course, there were going to be vicious repercussions afterwards, like out of control inflation. But at the time, we got to rest and think, which was something that hadn't happened for the proletariat since the proletariat was created, I imagine. At all times in history, the lowest level people are always working and sacrificing themselves. They don't have the opportunity to switch careers or think about taking time off to go on a sabbatical or do something for themselves. When your daily life revolves around survival, making enough money to pay the rent, and hoping to have just enough money for another brick of ramen, your life is pretty miserable. Talking point number two. Uh, your grandparents could work a regular job and afford a house, a car, and a family. Today, full time workers can barely afford rent, let alone save for a home. Everything housing, healthcare, education, groceries has gone up terribly in price. And the wages, well, they're still stuck somewhere in the 1990s. No wonder it feels like you're running in place. I have said this over and over again. If I was making what I currently make and it was the year 2000, I would be balling. I would have ladies, I would have a nice car, and I would have a big old freaking house. And I'd take 2 months off for vacation every year. But I don't have any of those things. I mean, I worry about taking a sick day because they don't really want you being sick. And for some reason this year they didn't inject our vacation time like they normally do at the beginning of the year, right? January 1st, your sick time resets. This year it didn't. For some reason this year they just didn't put in any sick leave. And I asked a friend of mine at the corporation and she said she doesn't know why they haven't done this either. Unless they're planning on doing what I most likely thought they were going to do from the beginning. They're eliminating sick time because I don't have a single hour of sick time right now. And we're a month and a half into the year, and I haven't had a single hour of sick time added to my job. Intentional? You have to believe so. So, with that said, let's get into our final talking point. Employers want you desperate, not thriving. Companies don't want you to be financially stable. They want you just broke enough to keep working, but never comfortable enough to quit. And that is entirely why they love people like me. Desperation workers. I literally make just enough money so that I don't have any money left within a couple of days of my next paycheck. And that's my evil corp money. The YouTube money is that band aid on my finances right now that lets me get. When I looked in my bank account today, I had my YouTube paycheck from last month was going to cover me for this week. If I hadn't gotten that YouTube paycheck right now, I would be hurting. There would be nothing in my bank account, and I'd be wondering how I'm going to make it all the way till Friday before I have money in order to buy anything. So that's how tough things are. And it's an intentional system to make certain that you're always financially unstable. And financial instability includes side effects and byproducts of financial instability are mental health instability, are physical health instability, since you're not eating correctly and you're not sleeping correctly and you're not seeking preventative care. You can see that all of these things are related to one another, but everyone pretends that they're not. Making certain that you're financially not stable is one of Evil Corp's primary purposes. Happy workers don't go to toxic workplaces, and toxic workplaces are what's out there. There is nothing good. There are no good jobs left for the people down at the bottom. And before I move into toxic positivity, this is something that Jill and I talked about today, because I said to her one of the sweetest things about her is her upbeat attitude. She's full of toxic positivity. And I said this to her, that it was very, very cute that she still had that attitude. But then she hit me with this, which kind of threw me for a loop. She told me that she was a very naturally pessimistic person. But when she's at work, she tries to be more positive so that people see her as a much more positive person, which I thought was really strange until we were talking and this comment came up. Somehow we got on the topic of my work and she said, we don't like him. She said that exact phrase, we don't like him, in reference to my boss. We don't like him. And then she said to me, well, why don't you just find a better job that pays you more money? And I stopped her right there. I didn't say anything. I stopped talking right there. And she goes, oh my God, Millennial Steam, I'm doing it again, aren't I? I'm telling you to be positive when I know the reality of the economy is it's not good, because you've been telling me this for 2 hours. Not just today, but the last time. And she said that she didn't understand how much she did this. But it was one of the first things I pointed out when I started talking to her today, is that she keeps doing that. Is she's falling victim to toxic positivity. And for her to catch herself mid-sentence saying, I'm doing it again, aren't I? Yeah, you were doing it again. Luckily, because you met me, you can start seeing that you need to stop doing that. And the last thing that happened before we left each other was, she's like, Millennial Steam, I want to see your channel. And to me, when a girl asks that, it's about as intimate as pulling down my pants. I want to see your channel, Millennial Steam. And I'm like, you're not going to be very impressed with it. Let's put it that way. Oh my gosh. I was watching my own video this morning while I was at the gym. And I was also watching myself yesterday, and I was laughing out loud while I was doing my cardio yesterday. Well, while I watched my own channel, and the girl that was two machines over kept staring at me. It's like, why is he laughing so hard? Sometimes the things I put into these videos just I just can't stop laughing that I would say that, because remember, there are talking points, but there's no script here. Every video has talking points that are 1 or 2 sentence long, and the rest of the video, the rest of the 20 minutes that I fill up the videos with, are just me off the cuff. So let's get into the structure of toxic positivity. So at the end of this script, I asked ChatGPT to make me some toxic positivity. It bent over, squatted down next to me, and pushed out toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is just a polite way to gaslight you into accepting misery, so you don't question why life keeps getting harder while the people at the top keep getting richer. And this is what Jill noticed about herself, is that she's gaslighting herself into believing that her life's going to get better. But she's been an adult long enough to know that she's working very, very hard and things aren't getting better in her life. She's not meeting anyone. She's driving a pro car. She spends all of her free time sleeping or trying to relax, which isn't very much time because she works nights and weekends because she works in a salon. When you work in the service industry, you work when the workers are off, right? Workers don't have free time Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They have time on holidays, evenings, and weekends. And that's when the service industry has to come out and play. That means that you if everyone else around you doesn't have the same schedule, you start getting left behind. You start seeing your family less on holidays. You don't see them at night for get-togethers. Sometimes you have to get early and miss family gatherings. I mean, I heard all of these things while I worked at Kroger and Walmart, that people would get to a point where, like, my family's more important than this job. For me, staying alive is pretty much the only thing that keeps me going to work. Having a worker that's a desperation worker is the best thing that you can possibly have. Don't have to pay them great, don't treat them great, and if they get out of line, you just fire them and find someone else that will work for less money. That's the great society that we live in today. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit like, subscribe, donate, and always leave a comment.